Okay, I think with respect of time, we will start. Here's Jim Steinberg as well, and we are near complete. Well, let me thank the press for having been numerous here in Tromsø yesterday and today. I appreciate that you found this event important enough to cover in this struggle for news. It was the ambition of the Norwegian chair to combine yesterday's seminar with today's ministerial meeting, to demonstrate that the Arctic Council is working on the basis of science, knowledge, and careful studies of the major challenges and opportunities we face in the Arctic. So Arctic climate change and protection of the agenda of the environment has been on the top of the agenda of the Norwegian chairmanship since I took over from Minister Lavrov in Salikard 2.5 years ago. We had a priority of making the Arctic Council more politically relevant. We feel the need almost from month to month, the growing attention on what goes on in the Arctic. This is the circumpolar political body. We have agreed today among the 8 of us that the 8 Arctic states plus the permanent participant of indigenous people constitute the core of the Arctic Council. We have also agreed that we will welcome observers to the Arctic Councils. You have seen a few of them here now. The growing interest in the Arctic Council requires of us to formalize the status of observers. And we have agreed that under the Danish chairmanship, this will be one of the first tasks, namely to hammer out the formalities of how observers participate. But we believe that the Arctic Council is the center for circumpolar discussions, decision shaping on Arctic matters, and we wish welcome to those nations, those states who wish to participate in those debates to come and take part. A few words on the key decisions that we have made. You have the statements from the ministers, and you have yesterday's chairman's conclusion from the ice melting seminar. I will highlight just a few points. We are establishing a task force on non-CO2 drivers of climate change to identify measures to reduce emissions and recommend immediate actions. As those of you heard yesterday at the seminar, these non-CO2 drivers are extremely strong in terms of their climate effect, but they are also within reach to cut emissions significantly from black carbon, methane, and tropospheric precursors, and that we will start immediately. We will send these recommendations directly to the Conference of the Parties to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, COP15 in Copenhagen. We have heard from the Italian foreign ministers that he will bring both the statements to the G8 summit in a few months. So we want this message to get out, a clarion call for the need for change and enhanced climate policies. We have agreed to establish a task force to negotiate an international instrument on cooperation on search and rescue. We need that as traffic increases. And you see the method of the Arctic Council. We don't have a big secretariat, we have a small secretariat, but it is governments coming together, appointing a task force to deliver recommendations on which we can take decisions. We will address maritime safety in the Arctic internationally. That has to be taken to the relevant bodies. We will advise the IMO, the International Maritime Organization, to ensure adoption of the guidelines for ships operating in Arctic ice-covered waters and international mandatory regulations on safety and environmental protection for Arctic waters. We have the knowledge, we have the prime responsibility, and we will take it to the relevant bodies. We have agreed on the revision on the guidelines for oil and gas exploration in the Arctic to define minimum procedures and standards, to build that floor on the standards which will be applied in future industrial activity in this vulnerable region. We have agreed on development on safety systems on implementation of economic and infrastructural projects in the Arctic Council. Russia and Norway will lead this work together. And we have agreed generally on better resource management in the Arctic. The Arctic Council advises on principles for ecosystem-based ocean management. You have in front of you a rich report from the senior officials, the statement from ministers, and the summing up of yesterday's conference. So with that, I conclude the Norwegian chairmanship, and I think we've had 2 fruitful days in Oslo. And I pass the floor to Per Stig-Møller, the incoming chair.
Thank you very much.
Well, same country.
Greenland, Faroe Island and Denmark, we are very happy to take over the presidency and responsibility of the Arctic Council. We think it's a very important body, and the importance is growing. That's why so many countries want to become observers, important countries, and we should look upon them as partners, and we will try in the future to find out the rules and the rules and roles of the partners observers. Of course, during our presidency, we'll continue the work with the climate change. That's a focal point, and we have to see to it that the climate change problems will be dealt with as well as possible, because 30 to 40% of the CO2 emissions are coming from countries who are part of the Arctic Council. COP15 will take place, as you know, later this year in Copenhagen, and from a Arctic Council perspective, I can tell you that we will deliver a report on the melting of the Greenland ice sheet to the conference in Copenhagen. It's a problem which, you know, will grow and will be still stronger and more problematic in the future. Science indicates, as we know from this conference today and yesterday, that the contribution to the rise in sea level is still growing and getting worse and worse for all the melting ice in the world. I'll be brief because it's late, so I can tell you that it's very important to balance the effects, the efforts against the climate change with the challenges for human beings in the Arctic. 4 million people are living there, and of course they must have their living conditions made better, but also they must be allowed to grasp the new possibilities which the climate change suddenly have given them. There will be tourism, there will be building of harbors, there will be possibilities of exploitation of the oil resources, gas resources, and you cannot just say to them, well, you stop because we have destroyed the rest. We have to deal with it in a sustainable way, and we have to look into the problems with health and migration of species which will follow climate change. We have a special responsibility for the climate of the world because of the ice, melting of the ice. Also, we have a special responsibility to deal with it in a way that makes life easier for the peoples living there, and also in the same way doing it in a sustainable manner. All these factors must be respected. The only political forum where the challenges in the Arctic can be discussed is here in the Arctic Council. We have, as you all know, a number of other very professional organizations, each doing much appreciated work in their field. For example, fisheries organizations, the IMO, but we have no organization to discuss the overall management of the Arctic except within the framework of the Arctic Council. So Denmark, Faroe Islands and Greenland are looking very much forward to shoulder the task which has been given to us today. It's a very huge effort we have to do, and we'll do our best. Thank you.
Before I pass on the floor to the journalists, any other of my ministerial colleagues like to make remarks? Sergei, please.
If I may, because we 2 years ago passed the baton to you in Salekhard, and with your permission I'll say a few words in Russian for the benefit of the Russian media. Во-первых, я очень доволен тем, что все задачи, которые были сформулированы на предыдущей сессии Арктического совета в Салехарде, выполнены, и хочу отметить заслугу в этом норвежского председательства. Благодарим за эти усилия и желаем успеха датскому председательству.
First, I'd like to note the tasks set out at the previous Salekhard Championship for Russia have been successfully fulfilled. I'd like to express words of thanks to the Norwegian presidency and to express our hope for fulfillment of tasks for the Danish presidency.
Среди тех решений, которые сегодня приняты, две российские инициативы, которые были одобрены, это создание многосторонней системы предотвращения и нейтрализации последствий техногенных катастроф, а также создание системы поиска и спасания.
So among the initiatives adopted Russia forwarded the initiatives, one on the prevention and neutralization of man-caused disasters, as well as search and rescue operations.
Мы сегодня также предложили нашим партнерам дополнительные проекты на их рассмотрение. Это, в частности, проект создания панарктической электронной библиотеки, электронная память Арктики, а также предложение о расширении взаимодействия между береговыми охранами приарктических государств.
They were also forwarded to our partners to new initiatives, one to create the Pan-Arctic Digital Library, electronic memory of the Arctic, to enhance cooperation among the Coast Guard services of the Arctic states as well.
Полностью согласен с тем, что имеющиеся нормы международного права позволяют решать любые вопросы, которые возникают в Арктике.
And I fully concur with the assumption that the existent legislation in the world allows to deal successfully with all issues which might arise in the field of Arctic.
В России решением президента Медведева в прошлом году были одобрены основы государственной политики Российской Федерации в Арктике на период до 2020 года, и формулирование этих основ в полной мере учтены задачи развития в Арктике многостороннего сотрудничества с использованием всех имеющихся норм международного права и имеющихся структур, прежде всего Арктического совета.